Friends, the title of our session this morning is No Longer Silent. And we are focused on the processes that took place in SADC beginning 2019. So what happened is that in 2019, ACT Ubumbano, in collaboration with Faith to Action Network, pulled together faith actors from different traditions around the SADC region. So they brought them all together to discuss, first of all, and then from those discussions, develop policy briefs, theologically sound policy briefs on gender-based violence, sexual and reproductive health and rights, and teenage pregnancy. So these dialogues were held over several days, friends, and once consensus was reached, then the drafting of these policies began. And the faiths that were represented included the Baha'i faith, traditional leaders, Muslim faith, and Christianity. I hope I haven't left anybody out. All right. And you may be wondering, you may be sitting here and wondering to yourself, but what does faith have to do with it? You know, I'm not Tina Turner. But what does faith have to do with it? All right. And we talk about the influencing capacity of religion, especially within Africa. The 2021 Afrobarometer talks about 90% of Africans, even within the SADC region, who belong to one faith or another. They're religious. So the influencing capacity of religion. And our teaching and practices. Within religion, there's lots of teaching and practices, and our teachings and practices influence what happens in SRHR, the practice of SRHR, the provision of services within your particular context. And we are in a world where gender-based violence is everywhere. We are speaking from South Africa in particular. We have the recent stats over the last 2 years on teenage pregnancies alone have been horrendous. We're talking hundreds of thousands of young girls who fell pregnant between lockdown, March 2020, and now. President Cyril Ramaphosa referred to gender-based violence as the second pandemic. So we had COVID and gender-based violence. So it's rife, it's everywhere. So why silent no more? Why are we saying we are no longer silent? Because unfortunately within faith spaces, silence and secrecy have been the norm. We have nurtured this culture of silence and secrecy. You know, we sweep stuff under the table, under the carpet. And within faith sectors, there are lots of topics that we consider to be taboo and ungodly. You know, sex is, you know, we have it behind closed doors. We turn off the lights. You know, we can't be talking about it in church. We can't be talking about it in the mosque. So we consider certain topics to be taboo and ungodly. But as religious people, we are called to stand with everybody. We are called to stand not just with the 90% who are affiliated to us, but with everybody, the marginalized, the poor. We are told to walk alongside them. And to use a phrase from Christianity, I am my sister's keeper. You are your brother's keeper. So that's why faith has a lot to do with it. So the 3 policy briefs were produced, and these theologically grounded policy briefs, which I believe will be made available. They're available online. I believe they're on the Faith to Action website. So they are available on there for your use. But these were used to provide information on teenage pregnancy. Theologically grounded information. You know how we are with our sacred texts. You know, if there's a biblical verse that supports what is being said, then we're all, we're open. We embrace what is said. So, theologically grounded policy briefs. So there's information there. And these policy briefs have been used to start conversations. So as conversation starters within certain circles, and to help fight sexual and gender-based violence, and to help prevent teenage pregnancy. Friends, to help us unpack the whole process, I was just introducing the process. To help us unpack the process, we have four friends who were part of the whole process, who will walk us through the process they went through and how these policy briefs are helping them in their work within their particular context.
Thank you. Firstly, let me introduce myself. I am Absalom Mnisi, the Bishop of the Evangelical Lutheran Church. I'm staying in Swaziland, a southern part of Africa. I'm grateful to be invited also to talk about the sexual reproductive and also health, which is also a very important thing also on us as church leaders. And I am also happy that the church has seen it very important to talk about these issues. Our young people are the leaders of tomorrow, so they need to know about their rights, that the sex should not start at early in their life, but they must be ready, because we want people who are healthy in the future. As a church now, when we speak about Lutheran action against gender-based violence, there are about 7 points that I want to share with you. The first one, we are training volunteers to raise awareness that includes clergy and the lay members. That is the first one. Train volunteers to raise awareness for both clergy and lay members. That is number one. Then number two, we are raising awareness in communities, which includes but not limited to domestic violence, abuse of children, and also abuse of elderly. So we are raising that awareness among communities. The third one, we speak about age-appropriate teachings, which we do for Sunday school. Our Sunday school includes adults, not only young ones. So it's age-appropriate teachings from Sunday school to adults. This is the third one, that we are attempting to involve everybody as we talk about the gender base and the other challenges. The fourth one, I've said slightly when I was seated there, there's a confirmation class. What do they want the elders to know about their lifestyle choices? When we address the confirmation class, we ask them questions. They are the ones who are teaching us. Then we work with them, because there are something that we don't understand, why there is always a limit between us and them. So we ask them in their class so that they can teach us as adults. The fifth one, we make some group discussions with the youth members about gender-based violence. Just the youth there, both girls and boys. We get a lot of also issues where we say, we're not aware of this and that. So when we engage them alone, at the moment they've written a document which is also shared with our colleagues in Germany and other places, where they see that pastors are always saying this, but we don't really follow. So we've got a lot from them in our research. That is group discussion with Youth League and members of gender-based violence. The sixth one, we also address the trauma accompaniment training for faith leaders. Here, we ask the question, how do we help survivors of rape and abuse? How to assist them to report the cases? How to work with them to get their medical treatment and counseling? I repeat, that is the sixth one, trauma accompaniment, training for faith leaders. How do we help survivors of rape and abuse report their cases and get their medical treatment and counseling? The seventh one, we also do the scripture. What does the Bible say about gender-based violence? What does the Bible say about gender-based violence? And here we also use a contextual Bible study, where at the end we find that we get answers from the congregation, which we address. Thank you.
We always seem to have this, I think, thinking when we get to a conference, we talked about it this morning, how do we translate what we know into action? And it is still, I think, we are still kind of learning. It's like I hear myself talking to people and I say, faith to action. It was wonderful to join. It was like this baby that was beginning to walk, and now we're running, and now we are sitting here again. And it's just wonderful to know that things are not dying, it's growing. There's many things, I think, we thought, that there's no longer a place for it. But there's always a place and a space, I think, for spirituality and for unity. So those are the two things, I think, that makes me feel very comfortable in this space. Yeah, anything else? And just, by the way, our youth and our children and our families are also beginning to realize that everyone has a problem. It's not just the parents or the youth or the children. In the family, everyone has to now look at and reflect at what is it that they're doing that is either right or wrong, and then work towards, same like we are doing now, working in unity.
Talking about sexuality in the church is not a taboo, but it's something which we have to talk about. We have to have our community talking and preventing the early marriages, preventing also the issue of GBV in our society. It was a way to respond, to break the silence in our church, to break the silence also in our community. We formed 3 groups in the church, which are composed by women's leaders, men's leaders, and youth leaders, and to encourage them to have a dialogue in this matter and during their weekly meetings. We know women's, they meet every week, youth and men's too, so that they can spread these policies amongst the church. That means that we used to say that the church is not an island, but we are where everything is happening. So the church has to speak out. And also, we encourage the church leaders to use the pulpits during their Bible studies to talk about or to address the issues of GBV, and also the non-discrimination for any kind of marginalized groups. As we know, if a girl has known that she was pregnant for someone, although people try to discriminate, even to talk badly in the church, than encouraging her to recover on the trauma which she was found. And also, we encourage them to develop a social support for all groups, especially the young girls and children, so that they can support them to recover for all those suffered which they passed through. So this was our starting point in 2020. But as you know, the issue of COVID came in and the church were closed for a long time. So now we are open for the last 1 month now. So we're allowed to have some meetings and also to have church services. And this is what we are continuing developing in our contest. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, please may you give him a round of applause. Thank you for sharing how theology is meeting the reality on the ground.
As ACT Alliance, Malawi Forum, at 2 levels we participated. The first one to bring in ideas which made the policy briefs. We are part of the process in the first place, discussing how to do them, how to shape them. And also, we should understand that the policy briefs are the interfaith policy briefs, which it means that they are the faith-based policy briefs. We already have policies in the secular. Then the second level of participation was now in Malawi, the major local language is Chichewa. So we really wanted to domesticate them. So we translated them together with a consultant who ACT Ubumbano engaged. So we have domesticated them. They are in local language. So in terms of participation in the formulation, let me highlight those points. But now when it came to using them, first of all, we had to sensitize the faith communities. The Interfaith ACT Alliance is coordinating, is one of the coordinating organizations for the interfaith community in Malawi. So we had to sensitize the interfaith community, all the faith communities, particularly the Christian and the Muslim, which are the major faith communities in Malawi. And through those sensitizations, we've seen responses and some outcomes. The first one being that one of the faith congregation, which is Blantyre Synod, the Church of Central African Presbyterian, Blantyre Synod, went a step further. They said, now that we've been informed by the policy briefs, we want to develop a specific policy on sexual or reproductive health rights for the youth. And that policy has made the leadership of Blantyre Synod congregation to accept sexual reproductive health rights as something which is supposed to be preached beyond the pulpit or on the pulpit. So that's the first outcome. And the second one is that the interfaith briefs, they informed our work as the stakeholders who are involved in developing proposals, frameworks at national level. For instance, as the ACT Alliance Malawi Forum, we develop annual plans. So we agreed that all the annual plans for our members, they have to include strong components on gender-based violence, sexual reproductive health rights, and even teenage pregnancies. So since 2019, 2020, and now 2021, all our plans are really clearly reflecting these issues. So they were informed by the policy briefs. And apart from that, we've also managed to develop a joint framework which has incorporated the gender-based violence, particularly and the sexual reproductive health as a strong components. And finally, informed by the interfaith briefs, we've managed to develop joint proposals as interfaith in Malawi, and we've managed to win funding and implemented projects, particularly around gender-based violence, such that those projects have managed to mobilize faith communities in Malawi around formulating policies like bylaws in the church and even in the community, and also working closely with government stakeholders to make sure that we move as one, apart from the normal things of participating in the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. And as I can speak, we've got programs which are maybe as of now our members are implementing programs like community, like economic empowerment for women, in order to make them better people in decision making, so that they have not to be sidelined, as a component which is really informed by the gender perspective context of the interfaith briefs. I think this is what I can share, but there is also a report which I can share. I think I can circulate later on for more details. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthews. Can we give him a round of applause? So, Michael, we had two hands here and one there. Let's please take the first ones, the first five, and then we'll see if we have time for another round.
Thank you for all for the panelists. I want to share that it's very important what you said about knowledge. Knowledge is very important. And religious leaders are they have a very important role also. I want to share about Palestine and how can the church play a very good model and a role to stop the discrimination and sexual and all the discrimination against women and girls. We adopt a law which stop the early marriage. So it's forbidden that girls before 18 years could marry. This is a law. So it's very important that even we put like a convention, we should also work on bylaws or laws to stop all these discrimination against early marriage. Also, I want to speak about our government in Palestine. We work very hard to have a system, a referral system, which there is many partners in this system, like churches, Sharia courts, like women affairs, civil organization who work together, police who work together to help women and girls who faced violence. Could they get help and access to justice easily, because every one of these partners have their role and it's clear and it's by laws. So I think it's very important to have a bylaws and it is clear. Thank you.
I wanted just to say we are emphasizing on abstinence. That is the base of our emphasis in the church. In fact, we emphasize on abstinence, faithful. But if you are not experienced, you can also fight or reject your child who has gone pregnant before marriage. But if you're an experienced person, you always make sure that you do the opposite to support that child. So we are teaching that pregnancy it comes as it comes, but once there's a child, the child is a blessing. That child who was born in that kind of pregnancy is a blessing. So let me take maybe to make it personal. When my child got pregnant 4 years ago, I was the first one to support her. I walked with her. People were thinking, the bishop. I said, no, this is my child. She needs love now. She needs me to support her. And when we deal with the same issues in the church, I always tell members, support that child, walk with that child. And it is slightly changing now. We know that it comes, but we are not encouraging it. When it comes, the parents are there, the church is there to support, not to discriminate the child. So I wanted just to put that one clear, that it's a process, as Bong was saying. We don't have all the answers, but we're just sharing because we have still to engage. Change is not coming within one day. I just wanted to share that one, my friend. Thank you.
But friends, as we draw to a close, I think what has been spelled out clearly for us is that as the religious sector, we have a voice. We have a voice. We can no longer be silent. And we need to use that voice and to act in order to bring about holistic transformation and change. The time for silence and cautious, softly type responses to GBV, SRHR, and gender-based violence has passed. The time is now to speak, but more than that, to act. Thank you, friends, for your participation. Thank you for joining us today. And we hope you will join all the many very interesting tracts that we have during the rest of our time together.
Our approach has been engagement. Our approach has been focus group discussion based on thematic areas that we are looking at. Our approach has been advocacy. Our approach has been communication. So what we do with help with other donors, including Amplify Change, is to train faith leaders in advocacy and communication. How do we do it? We first need to know what they think about sexual and reproductive health and what is their belief. So bring them, this is good, this is your belief, and we want you to disseminate it, but we want to empower you with how to craft your messages, how to communicate it down to the people. So that is one chapter. We also use worship centers, churches, mosques. But what do? We do it interchangeably. Like an imam will be forced to go, or will be asked to go to church on Sunday, talk to church members. I am an imam, but this is what Quran said about sexual and reproductive health of adolescents. The pastor will go on Friday after prayers. He will talk to the congregation, just to tell them that yes, you can have your faith, but together you can build a society. So that is how our approach has been, and that is what we are continuing. We are not leaving out the youth. So we have another program for youth and men together. Why youth and men? Boys and men, actually. Why? Because we believe that if men and boys add their voice to the issues around sexual and reproductive health, gender-based violence will go down drastically. We also have survivors of gender-based violence as advocates, telling the people how they suffered and asking men, especially and boys, to be lenient on women, and asking women to report issues around sexual and gender-based violence, because in many cultures it's even taboo to tell people that I suffered this. So we encourage them, we train them, we give them self-esteem to be able to come out to tell people that yes, I am a survivor, and I am proud to be to have been survived the violence, and now I don't want anybody to suffer as I did. So in all this, you can never do it without funding, and if we didn't have passion, by now we will have stopped